While you're waiting for the stream to start, enjoy seeing the many faces and places of Eth-No-Tec and the communities we serve. Here we are.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome to our soup is on, and so are we.
Stream on, soup's on.
So how many of you actually made soup for tonight? Oh, good, Kathy, good.
By the way, who are you?
And Alex, I am Nancy Wong.
That's right, you are. And I'm Robert Kikuchi Ngoho, and we are called Eth-No-Tec, for those of you who don't know.
And we are here to provide you with a wonderful, wonderful hour or a little more of stories and, well, nothing like a hot bowl of soup on a cold night.
And it's cold. In fact, they're even thinking there's some snow falling in the Bay Area, if you can imagine that, for those of you who
Definitely Southern California, they say.
Yeah, it is not Minneapolis.
So, as you know, that we sent out an invitation that said that February had many, many, many themes, many day of. And so let me just read some of them right now. Pay a compliment day, give kids a smile day, read in the bathtub day. Oh, that sounds really good. National Clean Out Your Computer Day. National Don't Cry Over Spilt Milk Day.
When you spill milk on your computer.
National Make a Friend Day. Let's see, what else? Oh, National Love Your Pet Day. As if you know it every day. All right. National Public Sleep Day. And yes, National Homemade Soup Day. National Wear Red Day. And National Fairy Tale Day. And we were happy to discover Spunky Ol Broad Day, which is why we have Judith Black with us.
Yes, she is spunky.
I wasn't going to do the hot and sour soup because it looked so difficult, but actually it was pretty easy. So I have it in front of me. And the last things you do, well, first of all, let's see how we can get you to see it.
Careful.
Yeah.
It's hot soup.
All right. So, all right, where's that?
Oh, it's behind you.
It's in this thing right now. And so what I put in it was everything they asked, but I actually, instead of bamboo shoots, which I hate, I put in some of Robert's wonderful, here, I'll show you. Well, not only these mushrooms, right? Do you see these mushrooms? How can you see it?
They're dried mushrooms. Soak them in water overnight. And they become quite tasty.
But Robert makes these lotus roots. Can you see the lotus root?
No, you have to hold it up to the camera. Right
lotus
there.
Root.
Now, for those of you who don't know,
root.
lotus root grows in pond water and grows out a beautiful lotus flower as well. But it has these holes in it. And sometimes...
But the thing that Robert makes them so delicious. What is your secret?
That's why it's a secret. No, it's mirin, it's cooking sake, some vinegar, rice vinegar, a little bit dash soy sauce, lots of sugar, sometimes ginger, and then sometimes more sugar.
Wonderful.
Great. Oh, what's that white stuff?
It's tofu, but so I have my soup. And now the last step was slowly pouring in the whipped eggs.
And in the heat of that soup water, it will start to cook, boil. Yeah. In the temperature that it's in now?
Dr. Lau even said, turn it off.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, the tofu is actually the last thing to go in. So I already cut them. And now we have our hot and sour soup. I wish you could smell it. How many of you like hot and sour soup? It's not something I okay. It's not something I often even order at a restaurant. But oh my gosh.
That's really thick.
Yeah, it's that slurry that makes it that way. All right. So I'm going to give Robert some soup.
This is the advantage of tandem tellers. One pours the soup and the other gets to sample it.
Okay, now the next thing is.
Oh, yes. The green. The green and turning green screen.
You can't see it.
Yes.
Because we have
It's
a
orange
green
onions.
screen.
It's invisible.
Actually,
These are
so it's
cilantro.
cilantro.
Yeah, they can't see the green.
And you can't see the green.
Anything green
Onions.
will disappear in the green screen.
All right. So I'll trade you. You get to
Okay.
try the soup,
Oh, okay.
and I will
There
put
you
this
go.
back.
Okay.
But if you want some sesame oil,
Oh, let's try that. There you go. Oh, there you
too
go.
much.
Okay. Look
So
at that.
please begin to savor your own homemade soup. Everyone unmute yourself and just say what soup is your homemade soup.
What kind of soup you got?
Pea soup.
Pea soup, yum.
Ooh, that's nice.
What else?
Hi, Nancy, Robert.
Super.
For,
So-
that, for us, it would be rasam, if you remember.
Did you make soup?
I didn't make soup, but I made some rasam.
Rasam soup.
Okay.
Yum. Who else?
Chicken soup.
What? What is it?
Chicken soup. Jewish Pentathlon.
Chicken.
Gotta have chicken soup.
Uh-huh. And if you didn't make a soup, say what your favorite homemade soup is.
Can I try this now?
Yes, you can try
Okay.
it.
Mmm.
He has to say that,
I'm
whether
gonna
it's good or not.
You guys carry on. I'm gonna go eat some soup. Mmm.
Well,
I must say that is good.
that's wonderful. Now I have something, and it was really easy.
I should add the extra slurping sound. For those of you who are into ASMRs and internet audio sounds that have no meaning other than sound.
All right, so let's move on. Enjoy. Okay, so one of the things that, of course, as I mentioned, we love the Spunky Ol Broad Day. And who else did we think of but Judith Black? Now, let me say that it celebrates, Spunky Ol Broad Day celebrates older women for all their courage, wisdom, and vivacity, who have boldly weathered many a storm, breaking barriers and surviving to tell it as it is. That is Judith Black for sure. For those who don't know Judith, she is an award-winning storyteller who is passionate about our environment and doing something about it so that our next generations and all other living entities can live in a world that supports their lives. She's an activist to the hilt and has organized her community in Marblehead, Massachusetts and beyond to rally the cause with real remedies. The very outspoken Judith Black. Take it away.
Ta-da. Thank you.
Great.
Now, if she can be.
And Rupa will do a spotlight.
spotlights, yeah.
So, needless to say, I am proud and honored to be an SOB, a Spunky Ol Broad. Did you realize that, those initials?
No.
So we are proud SOBs. Yeah, I have to thank Robert and Nancy because I'd never really contemplated it or how one finally gets to be an SOB because none of us are born that way. Most of our lives, we're foot soldiers. And it's not bad. We're foot soldiers for our faith belief, our community, our family, the organizations we care about. And we do what they say we should do to make this world a better place. And I started to think, what has to happen for any of us to kind of break through those thick behavioral prescriptions and just be able to listen to and act on our knowledge and our deep voices, those instinctual voices that go way, way back before us, and that we have access to, but we're pretty much beaten as foot soldiers. So, I mean, like most of us, I've been a foot soldier most of my life. And even in the revolutionary movement of my youth, a good foot soldier. So I got to thinking about what changed, what enabled me to be a good SOB. Okay. Once you read climate science, this changes everything, the sixth extinction, the end of nature, all of this, and you're left in one of two states, either walking around going, we're all going to die, we're all going to die, we're all going to die, or lying on your couch saying to whoever you share your life with, honey, get me a catheter. I'm here for the duration, which turns out to be not nearly as long as any of us had hoped. Despair is not a fun place to live. And so the opposite of despair is action. So I started looking for a group I could activate with. But by this time, it was my very early 60s, and I was pretty much an SOB. And a lot of organizations were looking for foot soldiers, good organizations, the Sierra Club, Environment Massachusetts. I live in Massachusetts, lots of good groups, but I didn't want to be anyone's foot soldier anymore. You want to be able to initiate actions and draw people together. And then I walked into my first 350 meeting. Okay, do you guys know about 350.org? Talk to me, yes, no, some, middle. Okay, so Bill McKibben started 350.org, and 350 is the amount, the parts per million of carbon that's safe to have in the atmosphere. We are now at about 420. It is so scary, but action keeps you moving. So the first time I ever walked into a 350 mass meeting, North Shore Node, it was like, oh my God, my mishpacha. That's Yiddish for family. My mishpacha. People were sort of around my age, and I recognized some of them. Wait, were you at Seabrook? Wait, we got arrested together. My first arrest, right, in our long list of them, was at the site of the Seabrook nuclear power plant in the 70s. And a lot of these people had been part of that movement of trying to stop that plant. And it was like, I'm home, baby. And this has been my organization ever since. Now, here's one of the little most of our staffers, and we can afford 4, sometimes 5, are about 1/3 the age of most members. And they have a very different cultural aesthetic. That is, they are very PC. Okay. I mean, not to be completely down on PC, a lot of things I get, I don't mind. I can put my pronoun in my little box wherever I go or introduce myself by them. Though I have to say in my heart, I do not understand how your sexual choices have to do with your political action, but that's okay. This is not a problem. I'm glad to do it. And land acknowledgements, they've actually taught me a lot. But in the back of the brain, I keep thinking, no, let's not acknowledge who we stole the land from. Let's just give it back to them. They would be so much saner at dealing with it. And then we're constantly amplifying and raising up our allies. There's that kind of verbiage. And I think, okay, all good and well. We have to have coalitions or we're not going anywhere. Fine. But then, okay, we're having a meeting one day and it's about Chase Bank. I hope you all know Chase Bank is horrible. Over $184 billion put into the fossil fuel industry since the Paris climate talks. You got a Chase card, tear it up, but be sure to take a picture, send them a reason why. Also, we're just close behind them are like Wells Fargo, Bank of America. Sorry, won't proselytize anymore. But we're talking about a Chase Bank action. And somebody, like, their tongue slipped and they said, chased. I go, chased? And we hadn't started our official meeting, so I told this joke that most of you probably know about how the young monk is rewriting the Bible, and he asks the old monk, "Father, what if we miswrite something or make a small mistake? It is a complete misinterpretation of God's word. Shouldn't we be checking these with the original?" "My son, you're right. I will go down into the catacomb and look at it." And the old monk descends down, down, down. And the young one is waiting and waiting. And he finally hears this cry of pain, a geschrei, as we say in Yiddish, a cry of pain. "Father, is everything okay?" "Oh, my son, the word was celebrate." Thank you. Well, the young staffer, he's about 28, and he says, "Judith, I'm not comfortable with that topic." And I think, oh God, my good Spunky Ol Broad started to come out, but she took a long time to emerge. So a little history. In 1970, I was a revolutionary. I hope I still am. But then it was like, we are going to end the war in Vietnam. We are going to change our parents' 1950s value system. We are going to make this a country of equality between races, raise up the working class. Woo, 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 woo. And I lived in the radical anarchist lesbian collective of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Okay. Only one of us was an authentic lesbian, but it was so the thing to be. And we were powerfully committed. We rented a little row house in Garfield, a very working class community in Pittsburgh, and we were going to organize the working folks around us and have them speak out for their rights. Okay. Never mind that they were sort of terrified by our obvious lack of undergarments and our complete rejection of male-created standards of female beauty. They were probably a little bothered by our printing press, which was active almost all the time as we printed the underground newspaper of Pittsburgh in our place. They were probably a little uncomfortable with the FBI cars that came driving by the house a couple times a week. You know, the Crown Vic, and when they got out, it was the guys in suits with white socks. You knew who they were. And so the neighbors thought, who are they? And they definitely did not appreciate our attempt to reconnect with nature. Yeah, our way of doing that was letting the little infinitesimal patches of grass in the front and the back of the house. Now, on either side, our neighbors kept stunning, perfect gardens. We refused to mow. So it kind of looked like the Serengeti with God knows what animals were running in there, and flora and fauna looked primeval. We were not going to be organizing the neighbors. But inside the house, we were the revolutionary vanguard of Pittsburgh. Now, we were foot soldiers for the revolution, and we pursued all avenues that reinforced that. Now, this was the era of the Chinese Cultural Revolution. Mao was remaking an ancient nation into a revolutionary force. Okay. In hindsight, we understand that Mao was basically asking young people to destroy the nation's history, the culture that preceded them, and all the people that lived in it or believed in it. And it destroyed lives and communities. But we didn't know that. We thought, if the Chinese practice it, it is good. We are purveyors of the revolution. And so every night, I usually did most of the cooking from the food that we liberated from the capitalist supermarkets. And then we would sit around and have criticism, self-criticism sessions. Judy, that was a good dinner tonight. Oh, thanks. It is not yours to say thank you, Judy. You were given a gift. You can cook, but that is what you contribute to the revolution. It is only ego that would let you accept that as an individual compliment. Ooh. And I wasn't an SOB yet. And I felt like my ego was a bad thing. And I just crawled inside myself. Oh, well, we were the Red Guard of the community. A few years later, after studying acting, I joined a political theater troupe. It was called Little Flags Theater. A woman named Maxine Klein was the director. Oh, and I think it was just before that, I taught at a camp called Camp Kinderland. And at Camp Kinderland, Elsie Suller was the head. Now, Kinderland was the communist Jewish camp. It used to be on a lake, and the socialist Jewish camp was on one side, and the communist camp on the other. You could not imagine hating anyone more than they hated each other. And Paul Robeson used to come to our camp during his lifetime. But Elsie Suller would get up in front of the youth, who were the grandchildren of the radicals that started that camp, so their children could get out of New York City in the middle of the heat from the Lower East Side. Okay, they were the radicals. Elsie would get up and go, Kinder, we believe in the liberation of all third world people. We believe in the liberation of women. We believe in the rising of the working class. You will all be in your tents and in bed by lights out, or I will throw you out of this camp. Revolution sometimes doesn't really pass well from generation to generation. And then soon after that, I entered Little Flags Theater, and the director was Obie winner Maxine Klein, and it was the vanguard of revolutionary theater. We did the story of Mother Jones, and another one of a young woman trying to organize a union in the food industry, and a third one about about mountaintop mining. We did great theater, and we spoke to people about the rights of every human being. Now, mind you, if you were in the company, you didn't have too many rights. You were a foot soldier for Maxine, and we all had day jobs. We were either trying to get reviews or trying to work up business or sending out promotion or finding out about venues. And then we had to load everything into our big van that had been rehabbed so it could hold our costumes, our props, our lights, our poles, our boom bases. And then we would go to wherever we were performing. One time, we were performing at Walpole Prison. It is a maximum security prison here in Massachusetts. And as we are unloading the 40-pound boom bases, you needed to be strong to be in this theater troupe. Two of the convicts are sitting there where we're unloading. Hey, I heard we're going to have us a little rebellion tonight. Yeah, I heard we were going to take some civilian prisoners. Hey, guys, what's for dinner? Well, I don't know. What's for dinner? I heard it's liver. I hate liver. Take Jim. They ended up being a great audience, but it was not easy. We had to set up the entire theatrical stage. We had to strike it. We had to get home. Oh, yeah. And we also performed. And once when I just queried very gently why we didn't get treated the same way we thought all other working people should be treated, I found my ass on the sidewalk, no longer a member of the company. I was still just a foot soldier. I had not found my spunky old broad yet. I think that storytelling was probably the beginning of my path to this esteemed title. Because when I broke with theater and started telling stories, you never have to tell a story you don't believe in. You never have to tell a story you don't care about. You never have to tell a story that you don't think will connect to listeners and take them someplace. That starts making you sort of spunky. And then during that time, was working at a place called Massachusetts Interactive Educational Cable TV. It's a long title. It was a great place to work. So what we would do is I produced like 3 different series for them: Kids That Changed the World, Tricksters of the World. And I would tell stories, and the kids would be in their classroom and I'd be able to hear them and they'd hear me. So they would participate in the stories, and then they'd ask questions and I'd answer. They'd ask each other questions. I'd send in pictures. We'd show them. And everyone who worked there was, when I say wicked fun, wicked fun. Then one day I walked in, new series, and everyone's walking around like they have on a straitjacket. Hey, what's going on? And one person would tell me, we had a sex sensitivity training. And I don't know how they did it, but what they basically did was amputate people's heads from their bodies. It's like we were on Zoom 20 years before it was invented. And it was no longer a fun place to be. And even though my Spunky Ol Broad was coming out, I was a guest there, but I could decide to not stay. Then she finally started to come out of the box. Now, my daddy was so proud of his virility. I have to tell you, it was the most wholesome household on the earth, but my father loved to talk about sex. He used to regale us, oh yeah, the girls would fight over who would carry my books home from school. The big H was a catch. First time I ever dated your mother, told her she was the girl I was going to marry. And heck if I didn't. He'd come home from work and he'd put his arms around my mother and he'd say, quite loudly, "Gonna show your mother a good time tonight." And she'd go, "Harold, not in front of the children." Or we'd be sometimes playing a nightly card game, which my uncle called Meshuggah, crazy in the head rum. And in between rounds, my mom would go into the kitchen to scoop out Dad's nightly ice cream. And Dad, the patient saint of the world, would wait until the very last card had fluttered to the table. "Helen, the cards are all dealt." "You're not even breathing hard." When she came into the room, you could see the tendrils of steam coming from her ears. "Harold, not in front of the children." His first heart attack, my sister and I are sitting with him in the ICU, and what is he talking about? "First time I got laid was in high school." "Oh, Daddy, we don't need to hear this." Well, very sadly, my mother died before he did, his bride of 65 years, and it was nothing he anticipated. And he just fell apart. And I would go down every month. He refused to come live with me. So down to Florida, and we'd be sitting on the edge of the bed. And of course, what was he talking about? "You know, baby, when I just start taking those little yellow pills for my ticker, I just wasn't good for anything anymore. But I figure your mother, she'd gone through the change. She didn't mind." "Oh, Daddy, women can have orgasms till the day they die." "Oh, shit." And there was my Spunky Ol Broad, right out of the box. And once it started on that sort of personal note, yeah, I couldn't let the proud guy go without it. That part started to function a lot. So let me ask, how many people here have had a cancer diagnosis? It's not so unusual anymore. And about 4 years ago, I got my first. It was a thing called follicular lymphoma. Now, the minute you get a cancer diagnosis, you get your own oncologist, an oncologist of your own. Mine's name was Joel Schwartz. So for the first 15 minutes, we played a thing we call Jewish geography. I'm sure every ethnic group does this. And we found out we all knew the same people. We're in hysterics. And then I say, "Okay, Joel, I've been doing my homework. This is the fastest growing cancer in the world, and I have no genetic markers for it. So it's got to be from this filthy, filthy world we've created. So there's got to be something I can do through lifestyle, diet, exercise. And this very nice man looks at me and he says, no. Did my spunky old broad believe him? Thank goodness Robert has his own spunky old broad, and they looked into this as well in very much the same way. I went to an alternative healthcare practitioner. He gave me this great book to read called Starving Cancer Without Starving Yourself. You find out there are these 7 receptors for cancer cells in your body. And what feeds cancer most directly? Gluten and sugar. Oh, well, there goes my entire diet. But they're slowly, I'm 95% off gluten, 70% off sugar, because let's face it, a woman who gives up ice cream just becomes an unpleasant human. So it stays. But I go in to see the doctor now, and he says to me, you know, if I didn't know you had cancer, your blood work wouldn't show anything. And I keep explaining to him, it's because I changed my diet. But he can't hear it, because it would ruin the whole paradigm of the Western medical model. So we'll probably go through this till one of us dies. The other thing that being a spunky old broad teaches you is to not be afraid of the uji-naji and to try to communicate what's really true to people. So how many of you, before you had babies, you would go to birthing classes and they talked about the miracle of birth, the beauty of birth. We're going to help you with breathing. How many of them actually told you you're going to be getting a watermelon through a keyhole? Get ready for some pain. Wouldn't you have appreciated that? And then you could have prepared. Well, most unfortunately, a little less than a year ago, my OBGYN just had this bizarre sense to give me a pap smear. They don't do that with old ladies. It came back funky. She said, come back to the office. I'm just going to do a little test. They stick something up your vagina to your nose and they send it into a lab. I'm surprised that the phlegm didn't get in the way, but it turned out it was nasty and I had uterine cancer. So I just want to prepare you in case you ever have to go in for this kind of thing. Steve Allen used to say, pain plus time equals comedy. And evidently, physical pain has a much shorter shelf life than emotional pain. And so, a concise review of a radical hysterectomy. This was 7 days out in November. Initially, I was very at peace with having a radical hysterectomy because it was so in tune with my political beliefs until I learned that it just meant hollowing out your entire reproductive system. Yeah, what's the use? It's not like I'm going to use it. I have no intention of competing with Sarah from the Torah. And I realized it gave you this great opportunity. Once the organ is extracted, I could send it to the Supreme Court. They want them. They can have them. Unfortunately, found out you can't send organs through the mail. Maybe I could organize the old ladies of New England to send a U-Haul of extracted uteruses to them. That, or we could use them as tea cozies. I just like to reuse, reduce, recycle. Well, the surgeon, he did a brilliant job. And it turned out I could cancel my appointment with the tattoo artist because now I had this beautiful existential question mark on my belly button. It was very, very cute. But the fact that my labia from the long catheterization looked like an elephant's. Do elephants have labia? Well, if they do, yours will look like this after extended catheterization. Don't worry, it does go back to normal. But not to think about that yet. There was the first night of hospitalization. Enter Nurse Ratched. What did I know about bladder spasms? I could only tell you that every 2 to 3 minutes if I would cough or breathe too deeply or talk or think. These spasms racked the impacted area in such a painful way that I had never felt before. And press the nurse button and go, and other vowels. And the honey-voiced man at the other end got it. And he would just say, I will send in your nurse. And in stepped Nurse Ratched. She would look at me writhing in hideous pain and say, well, you did just have major surgery and there will be discomfort. And she would leave. As the night wore on, I started to get very religious, and I petitioned various deities. God, oh Jesus, oh Allah, oh Siddhartha Gautama. That can't be right. Too many syllables for moments of pain and passion. Oh yeah, oh Buddha, oh Buddha. But none of them seemed to work at that moment. It took 5 hours of almost nonstop screaming in pain before she would call a doctor who said, oh, those are bladder spasms. And then after another hour and a half, the medication finally came through. Oh, now this is when you really need a sister SOB, because you're not in any condition to advocate for yourself when you're in that much pain or misery. And for 4 nights and 5 days, I had the most amazing view of Boston from the 24th floor of the hospital. It was the Anthropocene in all of its cement and metal glory. There was a little bit of harbor, and on the 3rd day I saw it, a single wind turbine. Hope. Well, I've emerged from this with a number of really important theological, physiological quandaries. And one is quite salient. How many of you have ever had to be on pain meds? Then you will have contemplated this. Did the great creator divine oxycodone, and then the evil inclination attach it to pleasure? Or did the deity create the withholding as a preventative measure to try and get oxycodone? I don't know. Also, when you are walking around a hospital floor clogged like a 350-year-old rusty pipe and nothing's coming out the other end, why does nobody offer you any help? And it took talking to a sister SOB on the phone for her to say, advocate for yourself. You know what you did in the 50s. Oh my God, an enema. Why had no one thought of an enema? I know pharmaceutical companies don't get rich on it, but after advocating because of my SOB sister, we finally got the pipes unclogged, just in case you need this information. A dear friend drove me home, and every pothole felt like the Grand Canyon. And I asked her, could we please stop at the drugstore? In this case, I did make the pharmaceutical industry very happy, because I walked out of there with absolutely everything but the toenail clippers. Then I went back for those. You never know what you're going to need when you're rehabilitating. Well, getting home, I appreciated the lack of appetite for the first time since 1984. Okay, that turned out to have been a virus, but it was still nice to not feel hungry all the time. And thank God, I am actually fine now. But if you have a friend or family member who's kind of going through this, I'm going to beg a favor from you. Please do not write to them that you're filling them with love and light. Send them mocha chip ice cream and make them promise to stop the use of all fossil fuels. That would be the greatest blessing they could give you. So back to my meeting at 3:50. And this lovely young whippersnapper says to me, Judith, I'm just not comfortable with that topic. Well, my well-developed Spunky Ol Broad now cannot be shut down. I say, Dan, I'm an old lady, and look around at these squares. We have all lived a lot of life, and sex is a really big part of it. I mean, without demeaning or objectifying anyone, I think we can safely integrate it into our lives and conversation. Don't you all agree? And every single square in that meeting went. And I thanked my Spunky Ol Broad for speaking up.
Do this, Nancy.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Just
Wow.
unmute if you want and just, yay.
Yay, Judith, that was great.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Oh, and so glad you are over both cancers. Yes?
Yes.
But we all have them at this point. It is ongoing. Best to fight for a clean environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they say that we all have cancers. It's just normal, but it's only when our bodies stop being able to push them out on regular time schedule that it goes haywire. So it's the environment and the food and
Everything else.
yeah.
Wow. But thanks for that journey. And
And
as
you
you're
know what to say.
describing all the anatomical aberrations, I could feel that inner working going. Like, wow, there's some
Nailed
pipes down there. Thanks for this.
But Judith, women are like fine wine, as they say, right? They get better with age. And certainly that's you. Thank God for all of us. Buddha, whoever you want to call it, thank you that we get better with age.
Yes.
All right, so
That's a little
now
adjustment
we're going
here.
to transform into a different
Yeah.
a feeling, a different moment, because it's also fairy tale
Fairy tale month.
month.
Yeah. And speaking of transform, we all go. Thank you, Jesus, for your journey, because that is a journey of transformation. I know when I had my cancer too, it was really a lot of soul searching, inner work, of course, and of course, my Spunky Ol Broad saved the day with her tenacity about healing. So it was quite a journey. And a lot of fairy tales are journey stories, and we're going to tell you a story. And in this story may have come from long ago, far away. See if any of the images or words strike a chord with things you've experienced or that you see out there in the world.
Okay.
Okay.
So this tale is from India, and it is called The Flowering Tree. Once upon a time,
A very long time ago.
in an eastern kingdom in India, there was a family with a hard-working, very tired mother and two lovely daughters.
Ramya and Daya were their mother's beautiful daughters who loved and respected each other with joy.
These two sisters grew sad, however, as they witnessed their mother without a husband, day after day, working two jobs in order to raise her young daughters.
Now, one day, Ramya, the older sister, approached the younger sister, Daya.
Daya, I think it is time we helped our dear mother. She has no time for us or for her own happiness.
Yes, Daya agreed, and then asked how. And that's when Ramya revealed her secret, a mystery that even she did not understand.
Come, dear sister, let me show you another part of who I am. It is time to show you my magic, but you must never tell anyone, not even mother. And to witness it, you must follow my instructions very carefully.
The younger sister, Daya, was shocked to hear these words, even frightened, for Ramya's voice had changed, as if it had become a deeper, unknown place, perhaps from a deeper wisdom.
Promise, dear sister, this is our secret.
And Daya's eyes opened wide with trepidation and nodded yes.
This is what you must do. All water is sacred. Bring 2 pitchers of sacred water. Clear your thoughts. Kindness and grace must fill your heart. Then ever so gently anoint my body here, there, carefully. I will transform before you. Do not fear. It is beautiful.
Eagerly, Sister Daya fetched 2 pitchers of water. Ramya brought a basket, and together the 2 sisters ran to the back of their compound and settled in a clearing.
Younger sister Daya followed the instructions ever so precisely, anointing here and there ever so gently, ever so evenly.
Suddenly, a magnificent transformation took place. Ramya's body began to shimmer with light. From her head to her toes, she shimmered with a light filled with love. Then her body lengthened and her arms unfolded into branch. Upon each branch, leaves and buds appeared.
Within seconds, the buds bloomed into tens of hundreds of flowers, each blooming with such perfection and beauty, each more fragrant than the next, more than any other flower in the kingdom.
Oh, Daya stepped back in awe, speechless before the miracle blossoming before her eyes. A flowering tree. Then Ramya's voice spoke from deep within the body of the trunk.
Daya, now you must carefully pick the flowers, as many as you like, but be careful and gentle, with grace in your heart. Do not snap the twigs or tear any of my leaves. The basket will fill with this beauty.
Her sister did as she was told, carefully reaching between the twigs, gently plucking the scented miracles between each leaf. When her basket was full, Ramya's voice in the flowering tree continued.
Now, as before, use the 2nd pitcher of my water. Anoint my branches and leaves, and I will resume my human form. Clear your thoughts. Kindness and grace must fill your heart. Then ever so gently anoint my body here, there, carefully, and I will transform back to my human form.
Daya cupped her hands into the 2nd pitcher and sprinkled the water evenly and gently throughout the flowering tree. Within moments, the trunk, the branches, the twigs, the leaves folded back into themselves, and Ramya's body regained. Ooh, the 2 sisters giggled with the miracle. They then took the baskets of flowers to weave garlands. And as they sat, Ramya explained that each morning, after Mother would leave for work, they would transform her into a flowering tree, gather the flowers to make garlands, and sell them at the gates of the palace.
We'll save all the money to help Mother.
And that's exactly what they did. Oh, the mere fragrance of their garlands wafted up through the hallways of the palace, beckoning the maidens, calling the courtesans and the princesses.
Oh, how could they not buy them? There was nothing like them in all the entire kingdom. They were treasures indeed, befitting the royals.
But such a tale as this cannot end so easily.
For life and fairy tales are magical, but like in real life, complicated.
Through the palace gates, across from the palace royal gardens, down the royal hall, the voices of the queen and the king echoed once again their worried words.
Son, you are of marrying age. You cannot put this off any longer.
No, you're handsome, you're smart, and all the other kingdoms are ready to send their daughters for you to choose.
But Prince Hari wanted none of that.
I will choose my own princess. When I find her myself, and when I look into her eyes, I know immediately she is the one. Oh, sending hundreds of ladies will not do. It will only exhaust me.
It is your duty, son, to marry and give us the next generation of heirs to the throne.
I will choose out of love, not duty. And the prince turned and walked away.
But he just so happened to walk away when the bevy of maidens, courtesans, and his own sisters streamed by, giggling and comparing the garlands hanging around their necks as to whose was the prettiest and who smelled the sweetest.
The prince, curious, followed the scent this heavenly scent, he peered out the window and saw across the garden at the gates two flower girls, two ordinary flower girls.
And at that same moment, none other than Ramya glanced up toward that window.
Their eyes met. And of course, they both shivered and felt a longing. It could only be an awakening of love.
The smile in Ramya's eyes struck the prince like the first rays of dawn. And from that day forward, just as Ramya and her sister would appear at the gate,
so did Prince Hari appear at the window to watch her from his perch.
well, the prince could not stand it any longer. He slipped out of the palace and followed the sisters home,
Down the country road,
past the villages,
to a small hut.
surrounded by a simple compound and a walled garden.
The prince now knew where they lived and planned to visit the next morning. Oh, would he be brave enough to introduce himself immediately?
Or did he want to watch them more closely first?
Or was it the impetuous pull of love that he just wanted to be near her?
Whatever it was, that next morning, when he arrived, unbeknownst to the sisters, he witnessed the miracle of the flowering tree, to the utter beauty of Ramya, whether tree or human.
Oh, the prince was in love.
But the king and queen were in an uproar.
The court was in chaos.
The jealous princesses were hissing like snakes. The flower girl?
Absolutely not. Prince Hari refused to rise from his bed, refused every meal.
Every attempt by the court musicians and clowns to jolt him from his love stupor failed.
Finally, days later, the king and queen relented, but the ladies of the palace were not pleased.
Oh, the gossip and rumors, the disdain, the snide remarks.
Silence, commanded Prince Hari. We are to wed. Ramya is going to be my bride, and she will receive respect and the highest courtesy deserving of the royal family. Now, when the royal entourage arrived at the hut of the flower girls, of course there was panic.
Oh, surely you're mistaken, pleaded the mother.
But Ramya was whisked away to the palace.
And soon there was a grand wedding,
A grand
a
banquet.
splendid dance.
And now to the wedding chamber.
There, sitting across from each other, Prince Hari gently told Ramya,
I know who you really are. Your beauty shines within you, on you, it spreads all around you, and I have seen your miracle.
You know my secret?
Oh, I
How?
fell in love with you long before I knew your secret. The flowering tree.
And in their wedding chamber, the truths of their lives were traded. Soon laughter filled their hearts.
As they spoke, they gazed into each other's eyes, and their love for each other deepened.
Ramya now wanted no secrets between them and decided to share all of the miracle of the flowering tree with her prince.
She instructed her prince on how to bring forth the flowering tree.
Bring 2 pitchers of water.
2 pitchers of water.
Clear your thoughts.
My thoughts,
Kindness and grace must fill your heart.
my heart.
Then ever so gently anoint my body here, there, carefully.
Oh, yes, carefully.
And I will transform before you.
He performed the miracle, and that flowering tree appeared before the prince, his eyes filled with tears as he was swept up by the beauty that had blossomed before him.
Then Ramya's voice offered the meticulous instructions of the delicate harvest, the caring of each branch, each twig, and when the flowers were picked, the second pitcher of water, the anointing of the tree, the returning transformation of Ramya, his bride.
That night, the prince and Ramya fell back into a bed of flowers. The fragrant scent filled the room. Their sweet laughter filled their ears and sated their hearts. And each morning, at the break of dawn, they tossed out the window the petals into the garden. Oh, it was their nuptial ritual, and this was their vowed secret.
Who knows how they found out?
Who knows which of the court princesses, hissing with jealousy, discovered the royal couple's secret?
Perhaps the one who spied into the royal couple's garden and saw the piles of petals tossed out the window each morning.
Perhaps it was the one who peeked through the midnight keyhole into the wedding chamber.
It doesn't matter how. What matters is the way they plotted and colluded, turning their jealousy into venom.
Finally, the moment arrived, perfect for their plans. The prince was called away on royal duty to another kingdom and would be gone for at least 1 week. Well, no sooner had his entourage left the palace gates that the court princesses descended upon their prey.
Dear sweet Princess Ramya, join us for an outing. Now that the men are away, us ladies are going to have some fun, and we'd love for you to join us. It will give us a chance to get to know you better. After all, growing up in a palace, what do we really know about a common flower girl?
Rami could feel their dishonesty, their cunning sweetness, their shady intentions, though she knew not what they were. But their insistence was heavy, and their prodding pushy. She finally relented, telling herself it might be good to get to know them as well, for the sake of her marriage to Prince Hari.
But you and I know what comes from ignoring your intuition.
Into the deepest, darkest retreats of the forest they went, and like wolves, the ladies circled Ramya.
The prince is too much in love. You must have woven a spell on him. Otherwise, why would a prince marry a mere flower girl? You must be a witch, a sorcerer. We have seen your trickery, the way you make flower petals. Yes, show us, or we will tell the prince while he was away you consorted with the gardener. Oh, how clever you are, sister! A gardener in a flowering tree. Now show us.
Poor Ramya. Threatened by a lie, she surrendered to her intimidators, and against her better judgment, she instructed them of the secret ritual.
2 pitchers of water.
With total fascination, their giggling stopped as they listened to Ramya's instructions. They followed her every word, for the authority of her voice resounded from a deep wisdom, the sound of which the court princesses could never have imagined. And like the countless miracles before, a most radiant and magnificent light emanated from her fingers, her limbs, her head, till Ramya had once again revealed her power.
I am the flowering tree.
Oh, the ladies screamed with delight. They dashed to pluck the flowers, giddy with drunken desire, laughing so loudly they did not hear the voice deep within the tree to be gentle, did not hear her screams, her unbearable pain with each ripping of her flowers, each snapping of her twigs, breaking the branches, the tearing of her leaves, made by greedy fingers clutching fistful of petals. Finally, the ravaging stopped long enough for the ladies to hear a faint cry.
The water. Anoint me carefully, please.
But the princesses, thrilled by their baskets filled, hastily grabbed a second pitcher and recklessly splashed it on the tree here and there.
A thoughtless flick here and there.
And then quickly dropped the half-emptied pitcher and hurried back to the palace, laughing and giggling.
The scent of fragrance soon faded along the path.
Ramya was abandoned in the forest.
The nightfall came.
The moon cast a silvery light upon the disfigured form, half tree, half woman, barely half a face grimacing between tree bark and human skin.
Ramya looked with her eyes through the bark and saw her limbs and fingers twisted, gnarled clumps, immovable, knobby stubs. She was paralyzed, a woody stump of a thing, all alone in the forest.
2 weeks later, Prince Hari returned from his faraway travels and discovered Ramya's gone. He looked frantically to the palace complex, asking every servant, every maid. Finally, he summoned the court ladies.
Oh, yes, we did see her. And in fact, we went out together for a picnic. We had a grand time. And the lady stifled a giggle. But she insisted returning to the palace ahead of us. And then upon our return, we heard she had run off with one of the gardeners, the one she had been flirting with while you were away. Oh, we are so sorry to have to be the bearer of bad news. And all the ladies feigned a sad sigh in chorus.
You are lying. I know her. She would never have done this.
Enraged, the prince jumped onto his horse and galloped into the forest.
In fact, the prince's horse led him into the darkest retreat of the forest, where Ramya had been abandoned.
Suddenly, stopped his horse, for he did sense something.
But sadly, like Ramya with the court ladies, he ignored his intuition, even as he heard a faint moaning sound. Ramya!
But the wind swept through the trees, and he did not hear her response.
Now the wind gusted as if in protest, but only succeeded in frightening his horse. The prince was thrown from his horse, then he galloped away, leaving the prince to mourn all alone in his search.
Oh, if only had the moon shone just a little bit longer, he may have noticed the twisted wooden stump.
Discovered her loving eyes peering at him silently.
Noticed the lingering scent of her fragrance. But it was not so. Ramya, now reduced to the wooden thing, watched painfully as her prince stumbled farther and farther away into hopelessness. And though she groaned, Prince Hari thought it was only the wind creaking through the trees, taunting his loss.
Our Prince Hari wandered away into the forest, lost in the night.
Lost at daybreak.
Lost for days.
Turned weeks.
Turned months. His mind blurred, his parched voice continuously muttering her name.
He went mad, wandering from kingdom to kingdom, village to village.
His parents, the queen and the king, they thought they had lost both of them forever. Perhaps, maybe they both ran away to ignore their duties. The king and queen mourned their loss, while the court ladies remained silent. What happened next may seem unbelievable, but it happened. Through the forest came a woodcutter. He stopped to rest on a small boulder. He ate a simple lunch and he saw a stump of wood across from him. Blink.
When he heard the stump faintly groan, "Please help!"
A demon!
And the woodcutter raced through the forest, away.
That evening, a small band of acrobats from the circus stopped to rest in this very same clearing. When they saw Ramya's painful face staring at them through the wood, now, though at first they were frightened, it was their curiosity. And being circus curiosities themselves, that caused them to approach the tree.
When Ramya groaned, "I, not as I appear. I am a woman."
A talking piece of wood. Oh, we can use this thing in our circus.
And so for some time they traveled together through small villages, crying out to crowds.
Step right up here, the talking thing. Half wood, half woman, it's all wonder. And soon the rain of coins filled their cash box.
Now one evening, as they huddled around their campfire, a band of thieves raided their camp and held the acrobats at knife point.
Suddenly, a haunting voice commanded,
"Leave them alone."
The thieves saw in the flickering firelight a grimacing face scowling from the bark of a stump of wood. Hey, this circus troupe is protected by spirits. And off they ran away into the night.
The next day, the circus loaded up the cart and thankfully placed their wooden heroine up front on the seat of their cart.
Now you can have a better look and enjoy the travel.
But as they bumped along a riverside road,
Oh, no.
Ramya was bumped out of the cart, plunged into the river, and swirled away in the swift-moving current. For days, Ramya tumbled through that river.
Eventually, the current slowed as the river widened, and her twisted form floated gently toward land, resting upon the shore. For days she sat, soaked, beaten, and unconscious.
Then finally along came a merchant who, as we all know, would certainly be resourceful if it was beneficial to his business, in other words, his purse. He spotted Ramya and immediately...
Oh, this unusual piece of lumber will display my wares at the marketplace with great interest. He strapped Ramya to his camel, and off he rode.
Unaware that the unconscious princess was within, he took no care of it, loading and unloading it roughly throughout his travels from kingdom to kingdom.
Then one day, in the Western Kingdom, the merchant was caught cheating a customer, and in his hurry to flee, he left Ramya at the marketplace.
And now Ramya's gnarled stump of wood laid abandoned again.
Now it turns out, on this same day, at the same marketplace in the Western Kingdom, a bevy of maidens of the queen noticed a strange man. Oh, a madman looking like, muttering to himself.
Of course, it was none other than our ragged Prince Hari.
Inside his filth, the maidens also noticed that the madman could be quite handsome if he were cleaned up. And so they eagerly took the mumbling Prince Hari to the palace because, as women often think, surely they could change him, cure him, save this madman. It was a project befitting queen maidens. Once cleaned up by their own servants, indeed, a very handsome man was revealed. And now their real task was set.
Who can awake this man from his madness? Oh, we can! After all, he is not as dead as that dead piece of gnarled wool that we saw in the marketplace. I will do my best flirting with him. I will draw him into a fascinating conversation. Let's try music and dance sensually in front of him. Surely the fine food, wine, and hints of flesh.
But none of their wiles or plans worked, and when their fun ended with them hissing, they gave up. But what else would an alarming sense of failure do but make the rejecting madman into a fool?
Put him back into his room. Let's fetch that ugly stump of wood at the marketplace. Let's give him that dead piece of wood to sleep with, since he might as well be dead to us.
And that is exactly what they did.
Now we arrive at the end of our fairy tale, where we can exclaim happily ever after.
For indeed, as Prince Hari stared at the walls of his locked room, there was another gaze staring back out. But unlike Prince Hari's empty gaze, the other gaze from the lump of wood on his bed burned with an intention and warmth that glowed like an ember. Then a groan.
And now something began to stir in his tortured heart. He heard not just a groan, words. Hari, it is me, Ramya. I am here, Hari. I'm here.
The prince turned towards his bed and saw the wooden stump. The mad shell of the prince melted away as he heard the voice of his beloved. Who could it be her? Is this the one I've been searching for? Hari began tenderly straightening out her broken twigs and crushed leaves with care until the tree was restored.
Remember, Hari, anoint my trees and my leaves with water, and I will resume my human form. Clear your thoughts.
My thoughts?
Kindness and grace must fill your heart.
My heart.
Then ever so gently anoint my body.
Here,
there,
carefully.
and I will be able to embrace you once again, my beloved.
My beloved, my beloved.
And so it was that the lost prince and princess of the Eastern Kingdom, found in the Western Kingdom, returned with much regale.
Ladies of the court, both east and west, were chastised and shamed for their ruthlessness. Some say they were even burned in a pit of lime. But it is our hope, at least, that they learned their lesson. That jealousy made them not only reprehensible, but also ugly indeed, and that's the last thing maidens would want for themselves.
As for us, the listeners of this tale, it is hoped that we are reminded to never abandon searching for the one we love, no matter the circumstances.
If the one we love is right in front of us, well, we must gaze into the eyes of the ones we love and discover, moment to moment, the depth of who they are.
And honor who they are.
Who your loved one truly is.
Ah, thank you. Well, now it is time for us to say whatever you want. If you can unmute, and this is the time that we actually have conversation, as if we were all really in the same physical room. So I know that we all know how to let others speak, so please.
Be unmuted. I declare unmutability. Oh, Shilpa.
So speak.
It's such a lovely story. I enjoyed every detail and nuance of it. It's really sweet.
Thank you, Shilpa.
We miss
Right.
you.
Oh, we miss
I miss you too.
Shilpa used to work with us, and also Shilpa was also in one of our Nuwa journeys to China, 2010, I believe it
Yeah.
was. Yes, visiting the storytelling village.
Yeah, Judith was on one, Linda was on one, Anne was on one.
Kathy Hunter was too.
Yes,
There you go,
yes.
2014, Kathy, right? Yeah,
Did they
So-
all get to dance at the gates of the Forbidden City?
that's right. It was
Uh-huh.
a party on my birthday.
Yeah,
Remember that. And I meant Judith, go share that anecdote. It's really, I love the way you share that story about the many faces of Americans.
do you remember it?
Of course. So they were the folks who were dancing. They were learning ballroom dancing, and primarily Han people, and they're very detailed and honor tradition and rules. And so the women were elegantly dressed, the men also. And right, Nancy's already doing it. It's like, oh,
Dun, 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 dun.
beautiful. And then the Americans show up,
Oh,
styling, and they're kind of a little appalled, a little interested. And then I think to calm us down, they started to ask us to dance with them. And very sweet woman. I didn't speak her language. She didn't speak mine. I'm dancing with her, stepping on her toes, apologizing. And she's looking at us and she's pointing to our friend Arif. And she goes, USA? And I go, yeah. And they point to this woman who looks like the Midwest, she looks like little Pippi Longstockings. And she goes, USA? Yeah. And she points to Charlotte Blake Alston, and says, USA? I go, yes. And then she points to me, USA. And, the face of my Jewish people are here. She points to Robert, goes through every one of us. And we are a rainbow of people. And I didn't understand why she was so surprised. It didn't dawn on me that they don't have that. Well, it didn't dawn on me until we were back in San Francisco. And my husband and I went to an Afro-pop concert. And we're walking out of the concert. And there were our people. There was a very tall guy with dreadlocks, and he's rapping to a young woman. And then there are these two guys, and they're keeping the beats that they heard, and they're speaking Spanish so fast, that they've got to be from Cuba, because you couldn't keep up in America. And then there's this very old woman who clearly is from Nob Hill, and she's pushing her husband and discussing how lovely the rhythms were. And I got it, that we are a diverse people, and it is a beautiful and unusual thing in this world.
And also around the world, they think all Americans are actually blonde hair and blue eyes. So that was really alarming to them. What? Yeah. Because it's what we import in terms of the old movies and the, advertisements, the models. So they thought America was supposed to be just white with blonde hair, blue eyes.
Do
Yes.
people think we're the country that has the most heterogeneous country in the world? It may be.
I think we are. I think we're a grand experiment, and actually for all its problems, we've done pretty well.
Well, it's our strength, really, to have that blending of the different cultures and different peoples, I
Indeed.
think.
We
Yeah.
have to remember that and celebrate, honor it, respect it. Yeah, today or this week in the news, some madmen threw eggs at a Chinese person on the bus because they thought they were
Because of the balloon.
the
You're
spy
spying.
balloons. And so he actually
He got off the bus
with like
and
3
they-
dozen eggs.
and he
thrown at
followed him
people.
and kept throwing eggs at him. Yeah. Must be a wealthy terrorist.
Yeah, that's expensive insults. Yeah.
All
What a
right.
world, huh?
Anybody else? Anyone else?
I'm gonna get more light.
Oh, you're so talkative. Come on, storytellers usually you can't quiet them. They're always talking. What's happened?
You shy. We'll ask you questions then.
Yeah, I mean, how many of you know or are a Spunky Ol Broad?
Spunky Ol Broad.
Yes.
Donna. Good for
Yes,
you.
Donna
And
is.
Leanne. Yes. All right.
Come on, you know.
Do you have any Spunky Ol Broad anecdotes you want to share with the tribe here? Examples of how Spunky Dim ruled over nothing or numbness?
I have a cute joke if no one has an anecdote.
Uh-oh, here you go.
So this takes place in what we call God's waiting room. Name that state.
God's waiting room.
What is God's waiting room? Which state of the union?
Utah?
Oh, right. You're on the other coast. For us, it's Florida.
Oh, Florida.
Oh, right. Got it.
The waiting room.
The waiting room.
Women are walking along the beach, and they didn't realize that they'd walked into the neighborhood of a nudist colony. And a man had just arrived there, and he had tanned beautifully, except for his pelvic region. So he thought, okay, he covered himself with sand, except for that one region, and he waited and tanned. And these 3 elderly women walk up to him, and they look, and the first one says, "It's not my Izzy." And the second one looks, and she goes, "It's not my Bernie." And the third one, she looks and looks and looks and looks. She goes, "No one in my apartment building." I continue walking the beach, and this same woman starts to wax philosophical. She goes, "When I was 20, of those things, I was terrified. When I was 30, of those things, I couldn't get enough. When I was 40, those things I had to start paying for. Now here they are, growing wild on the beach."
Thank you.
Funky gal. Yeah.
Yes, go.
This is a story I heard that was true, and it was you just inspired me to remember it. I had a friend, and she was talking about her, she was visiting another friend. So there were 2 women in their 20s, And they were complaining about their back pains and this and that. And her grandmother comes in and she goes, Goyles, what's wrong with you? You're supposed to be complaining about your fronts, not your backs.
That's like the 72-year-old woman who goes to her doctor and says, I want birth control pills. He goes, man, at your age, they help me sleep better. How could that be? I put them in my granddaughter's orange juice every morning. I sleep.
Oh my God.
Fun, too fun.
Well, thank you, everyone. If
Yeah.
anyone has another raucous, wonderful joke to tell us, and express your Spunky Ol Broad self, then we can talk about transformations. No, we won't.
Oh.
So this is a time I want to thank Rupa, who has been our tech person for many of these monthly SWINs, we call it, Storytelling with Eth-Noh-Tec. And thank Judith for being such a wonderful guest teller and wonderful friend. And I also want to say, if you want to donate so that Judith can walk away with a little moolah, that would be great. And we've put the donate button in the chat. So if you haven't already, please think about, making us donation.
Yeah.
And
they have some events coming up too, I'd like to announce. So those of you who are in the Bay Area, West Coast, or want to have a trip out to the West Coast, several years ago, Nancy did the research and wrote the story called Red Altar. It's the untold American tale of her ancestors who started the Chinese village, started the fishing industry. Well, in Monterey. Well, over the years, relatives have been rallying around this, and there's actually three things of note. We'll be performing Red Altar in Monterey on May 12th. By then, Nancy's book, the novel Red Altar, should be there ready for autographs. And then thirdly, it's part of a weekend called the Walk of Remembrance. And we've gone to this event. It'll be in its 8th year. If you can see in the picture there, hundreds of people come out to show their support for this. The Red Altar event would be launching the 8th Walk of Remembrance. And many of the people, and some of the people here are the descendants of that original 6 teenagers across the Pacific Ocean were shipwrecked off the coast. It's building such momentum that even some of the smaller towns in around there, Monterey, Pacific Grove, have officially had a statement of apology for the discrimination, the expulsions, the arsons, all the crimes that were committed against the Chinese. And it's a wave that's growing. As you may or may not know, now over 19 states in America have declared they've mandated that Asian American studies needs to be taught to primary and secondary kids.
And if you know anyone, because we have a Red Altar education project with a DVD and then a teacher guide, and so we are really hoping that we can get this into all the schools.
Yeah.
Across the country,
we'll be
because it's
attending,
important American history. It's about, discrimination and coming through it, and how even though my family survived and we're still here, that's still going on.
Yeah. Many, for example, because of the violence against Asians now exceeding 11,500 incidents of hate and violence, and in some cases murder, we've organized this event called Strong Like Bamboo, and it will feature social justice activist Russell Jung, who's also a descendant from the
One of
original
them,
Chinese
yes.
community.
And he also started the Stop AAPI Hate movement.
As well as notable Asian American
Storytellers.
Alton Chun, Linda Yamamoto, MJ Kang, and Emil Guillermo. And this will not only be a performance of stories of resilience in the healing of anti-Asian hate violence, but also we'll have a session of...
We'll have a panel, and then everyone will do breakouts and be able to tell their own stories of discrimination with compassionate listening, and we'll have therapists in the roaming around in case, and then we're going to teach people how to be a safe witness, safe victim, and then we're going to end with these senior rappers who are going to do their anti-Asian hate rap.
Get down. Who says Asian can't keep a beat? Anyway, also to final.
And it's going to be in a real venue, but we're going to also live stream it. And anyway, if you can't even do that, it will be recording it and being able to make it available. And it will be on May 28th, which is the Memorial Day weekend.
Right. And finally, I want to announce that after during the era of the pandemic, when we all shut down, it didn't stop us from rallying and organizing many nationally known Asian American storytellers. We formed this group called, we formed a group called Asia, Asian American Storytellers in Action, and created a project to just raise the awareness about Americans of Asian descent. And we created a YouTube channel called Asian American Storytopia.
It's free, and let all your grandkids and friends of who have kids and grandkids know about it. Just Google YouTube Asian American Storytopia.
Yes, folk tales and fun and
Activities.
personal stories, activity, some cooking show stuff on there, and a whole lot of fun.
For kids. It's aimed at K through 5, but it can be for anyone. It's great fun.
Great. All right then, you Februaryists. Oh, next
Yes.
month.
Are you saying goodbye? Are
You
you
might wave
waving?
Both.
Okay.
Next month, our
Oh yeah,
friends-
yes, man. We're having a really exciting last Thursday of the month. It's called No, You Can't Shut Us Up. And it's a concert that was curated by Robin Beatty, and it was recorded and presented at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on a Saturday morning. So we're going to present it so it's at a decent hour and everyone can see it. I am one of the tellers, and there are many more, and it's really us women speaking out. Another Can't Shut Us Up, Ol Broads.
to celebrate International Women's
Actually,
Month.
some of them are not so old. So
Yeah, so all you women come and bring those husbands, inner women with you.
yes, it's very important stuff.
What is the date of that?
That will be March 30th, 5:00 on,
We'll send out notices.
Eth-Noh-Tec. Yeah, you'll get
Yeah.
something.
And if any of
really,
you are
really
new
wonderful.
to us, yeah, definitely put your mailing address or email in the chat.
Oh, we already have it if they
Oh,
registered,
yeah,
right?
we know you.
Yeah.
We got your number.
Okay, Judith, any one last thing you'd like to say? No. Well,
Okay.
stay on so we can talk.